if you're a Lando fan, you are really shaking in your boots. How McLaren ended up failing their drivers so badly at this critical juncture.
You see Lando Norris topping the timesheets in Q3 with his heroic performance.
It was a bit obvious that maybe they'd fumbled something by making him slow down so much. I thought Lando was dragging kind of a broken car across the finish line.
This weekend in Las Vegas was McLaren's first ever double disqualification for technical reasons.
Well, that makes it even more intense.
Mate.
Oh, fresh rubber. Fresh rubber. Back in the game.
Oh my God. Before we jump in, Gav, I've got to check in with you. Are you feeling okay? Are you shaken, not stirred? How are you going?
I'm going to wear these for this podcast to cover the tears. So these are to protect me from welling up when we talk about what happened. But yeah, where do we want to start? How do we dissect this smorgasbord of a Grand Prix?
We'll start at the end, not the beginning, because really we walked away from this race, both you and I'm pretty sure, thinking that was a pretty conventional one-stop race for the majority of the field. This was a matter of just sort of managing your tyre wear. There were some overcuts, undercuts, there was some interest there, but it was not that exciting as far as strategy goes, although it was pretty exciting to watch cars go boom, boom around a fast street circuit. But then fast forward 2 or 3 hours after the race concludes, and it's getting after midnight, 1 a.m. in local time in Vegas, and there's a breaking news story, which is that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, finishing second and fourth, both McLaren drivers, might be disqualified. Dun, dun, dun. And then this kicks off probably about a 4-hour period of time where many of us all around the world are frantically hitting refresh on the FIA stewards notes page to figure out what on earth is going to be the outcome and wondering, will it happen? Won't it happen? If it does, what does it mean? If it doesn't, then we just carry on with our days. Bring on Qatar. What's your vibe? What's your feeling about what happened after the race yesterday?
The vibe is, still wearing my sunglasses because just in case, but the vibe is, on one hand, on a personal note, I'm very, very, very upset about the fact our dearest Lando and Piastri were disqualified from the race. Doesn't happen very often in F1. If you're a Lando fan, you are really shaking in your boots, because if there's one person that you don't want to be 24 points behind you with 2 races and a sprint with plenty of opportunity to snatch that victory from you, it's Max Verstappen, right? Like we know that, as we've said before, it's Max Verstappen's world. We're all just living in it. He is the greatest driver on the grid. That anyone who disputes that is, I don't know what to say to you if you dispute that. On the other hand, does this make this year one of the best years in F1 ever? Like, we thought we'd have a title race between the 2 McLaren drivers, Piastri and Norris, and now it feels like, don't even worry about Piastri. The title race is between Max and Lando. So from a global scale, from a macro scale, game is on for apart from maybe the Lewis Max 2021 crescendo, for potentially one of the most exciting finales in an F1 season in a very, very long time. And we've got the most dangerous driver hunting. We've got Max Verstappen. We know what he's capable of when he gets the bit between his teeth. We know that cars can crash. We know that cars can land up on top of each other when the competition gets heated. You don't want Max Verstappen chasing you for a championship that you kind of felt was yours a few hours ago, do you?
Absolutely. And I've got to say, I realized after we recorded last episode how I was mentioning that the last time Verstappen had been out in Q1 was Sochi 2021. I forgot to mention the end of that story, which is Verstappen qualified 20th by not bothering to set a lap time. Where do you think he finished in that race? P2.
I can't remember. P2.
P2.
Unbelievable.
So this guy, he is the Schwarzenegger of motorsports. He just absolutely cannot be halted, or can he? This is the great finale to the season that we're having, and I keep thinking it's sort of the most special season in such a long time, because on the one hand, we could have a brand new F1 Drivers' World Champion, the 35th in its long history, 75 years of motorsports. We could have a brand new F1 World Champion. On the other hand, we could have a 5-time consecutive World Champion, and that's only happened once before with Schumacher in the early noughties. So either way, it's kind of historic, this thing. And if it is Verstappen that comes out on top, he will have clawed back from the largest points deficit in history as well. So it's a big deal no matter which way it ends. And for McLaren, and for McLaren, it'll be their first World Drivers' Championship since 2008.
Since when?
2008.
Since 2008.
Since Hamilton. So we're living in the best timeline. That's what I got to say about this season, and I'm so grateful.
We really are.
I'm so glad that you decided to go on this journey with me this season, because this is our rookie season in F1 podcasting. Man, oh man, have we got ourselves a story to unpick? So let's dive in, Gav. So where do you want to go? Do you want to go to the disqualification or somewhere else?
Do you know what? What I'd love to talk about is how McLaren ended up failing their drivers so badly at this critical juncture. Some people will know this, some people won't, but this track, Las Vegas, is not a track suited to the McLaren's build, their car. It's extremely low downforce, and where we've seen McLaren excel and show absolute dominance is high downforce tracks where you have to get that car to stick to tight corners, to maintain speed, to get good exits. Sure, it's quick in a straight line, but it's not the quickest in the straight line, certainly not at this stage in the season. So were they over-egging? You know, they've obviously dropped the car too low. It's worn out the plank or the skid block, or it doesn't really matter, something on the bottom of the car that
that goes spark boom boom.
The spark boom boom, the spark boom boom stick lost a few too many millimeters, and we're talking millimeters. They measure it down to the millimeter.
Not even millimeters, mate. It's a tenth of a millimeter or less.
Is it a tenth of it? Are you sure?
Less than. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Less than a millimeter. Wow, good facts. So they've obviously come here saying we've got to get this thing as low as possible, and in the process of trying to go to that finer margin, they have taken their not only have they put a threat on Lando's title potential, they've also potentially pushed Piastri down to a P3. In fact, my guess is that Max will come out the gate so hard in this one sprint and 2 final races that I would be very surprised to see Piastri come out in P2 in the Drivers' Championships. So there's been a failure at McLaren. They didn't need to squeeze this much out of the car. They could have just been happy with a P2. They could have been happy with a P4 and a P7. They could have been happy with a P5 and a P8. But they wanted more, and I guess that's racing. I think we talked about this yesterday. Jason and I watched this race yesterday, listeners, together for the first time. And
second time.
Yeah, first time was in real IRL
trackside
for the millennials out there, trackside in Melbourne. But yeah, they didn't need to do it. But racing is racing, engineering is engineering. You know, data is data, and they thought they could run it that low, but they couldn't. And gosh, can you imagine the conversations at the end of the year if this is what cost it for them?
So I think it's, as you say, racing is racing, and also if you don't go for those fine margins, you leave a lot on the table. And so it's actually in the kind of the DNA of every part of that organization to try and eke out these fine margins. The drivers put their bodies on the limit every single time to try and get those tenths or even less of a second in terms of performance, and that actually bleeds through to the rest of the organization. They're all trying to get that advantage over their opponents. And so you sort of think, well, if you discourage that in one area, it could actually also bleed out to the rest and lead to a mediocre team after enough time has played out. And I think, though, it is a case of risk reward, and it hasn't paid off for them because they, as you say, they knew that Vegas wasn't going to be their track. They historically haven't gone well there. This season, they've really struggled when it's a low grip situation. And when you look at a street circuit like Vegas, where there's literally other cars and people walking around it in between sessions, it's a cold track. They race at night in the desert. It's dusty as hell. So it's inherently low grip. It's against the McLaren sort of setup and performance characteristics. And yet you see Lando Norris topping the timesheets in Q3 with this heroic performance, this mega unbelievable Rainmaster performance, the bravery on Saturday to watch him do that.
But now we know why. It's because his car was so flipping low.
Oh, maybe that's a thing. Hey, let's think about that. So with qualifying, when you go into qualifying, you have Parc Fermé.
It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been though because it was wet, so you don't really get that. You don't get that. Well,
no, but they set the ride height based upon. Do you get that
benefit in the wet?
No, it's not about that. Actually, here's the thing. This might be wrong, listeners. Let's just try it. When you put on the wet weather tires, whether they're intermediates or full wets, they are actually bigger. They're bigger than the regular slick tires. They've got more rubber. And it's fresh as well. So when you set up the car for the wet weather tires, your car might actually be higher off the ground. So when you put the slick tires on, it may be lower. Don't know. That's just the theory. Could be wrong. But I love.
Can we pause just to explain to people what Jason's theory is? Jason's theory is they put the slightly chunkier wets on, lifted the car up a bit. They did the measurements. That's fine. That's a good height. Then they forgot that the car was higher with the wet tires. They put the slicks on and it was lower. That's your theory.
No, well, let me just paint it slightly more vividly.
I like it. There's a guy called Barry in the engineering team whose job it is in McLaren, a guy called Barry Sniddock, and he clearly forgot to drop the car back down. That's what happened.
Well, in Parc Fermé conditions, you're not allowed to adjust the ride height. So it's fixed.
No.
So yes, and all the teams have the same challenge. They all face the same concerns and constraints. They can't mess with the car once it leaves the garage to go out and do a qualifying lap. But I guess they're trying to eke out every possible ounce of performance, and knowing that this was a track where they were not likely to perform well, they still managed to qualify first and then get the P2. But like our Icarus of yore, they actually aimed to. It's garbage night. I can't stop that. I'm sorry. But
I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. There's been a car going back and forth. Anyway, we'll cut this out.
Can't hear it.
So they aimed too high. They shot too high and wound up wearing down their skid blocks too much and sank right to the bottom. And the beautiful thing about this is that it has set us up with a wonderful end, a finale to the season. But if you're a Lando fan, as I know you are, and if you're a McLaren fan, you have to be walking away from this weekend thinking, why could they not have settled for a P3, P4? That would have been enough. And before this round, Verstappen was 49 points behind. Even with the win, he would have only clawed back, maybe 10, 15 points, still kind of at arm's length. You're sort of able to keep him away over there. But now he's 24 points behind. That's less than a race win. And there's a sprint weekend coming up this weekend and then another race to come. It's on. It's on for young and old.
To put that in context, Max P1 with Lando P2, 7 points. And now it's 25 points. It's absolutely huge. You've got Piastri and Max who are now on equal points, which is insane, absolutely insane. And you've got 24 points. I mean, I'm no statistician, but I was thinking about like what could happen. How could in a sprint and two races, so you got, 25, so 25 for the win. So he wins both of them. and he wins the sprint. 10 points for is it 8 points or 10 points? 8 points for winning the sprint. 8 points for winning the sprint. Even if Lando came second behind him in all of those, Lando would be okay. It would really mean Lando. I don't know. Have you looked at the stats? What would it take? The problem with these stats, right, is that you have to you can imagine a million different versions, like Lando DNFs, like Lando comes 5th in one race and 8th in the next race, and Max wins everything. Like it gets really silly. But
I did see
it's all possible.
One take on it, which had all of them finishing at the same points at the end of the season. It's a special combination of Lando disqualifying,
that's amazing,
not finishing somewhere, and he finishes 8th in one of the other races, and they all end up at the same points tally, and Lando comes out on top.
Okay. Well, this begs the question, because who's won? Because if the points are even, it's whoever's won the most Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So how many? So this is Max's 6th this season, I believe.
I don't remember.
How
That's
many's
a good
Lando?
question. He's won 7. He's won 7. So
who has Max?
Lando's won 7.
Lando's won 7. Max has won 6. Well, that makes it even more intense, because that's really easy. Those two numbers are very close together, 6 and 7, aren't they?
Yeah. 6, 7.
Oh gosh.
Sorry to do that.
6, 7. So amazing race. I wasn't watching a lot of what else was going on the field. There's a few interesting stories I think we should tap upon. But the final thing I say on this whole disqualification thing is this: I was sitting next to you, Jace. We're watching it. It's the final few laps, and Lando starts dramatically slowing down. And as an F1 fan, the first thing I think you think is slow puncture. You think engine failure. You think kind of hydraulics. You just start going through what is it? And you're watching the timing charts, and I think it's like 10 seconds between, somewhere in the region of 10 seconds between Lando and George behind him. And I was just watching it go 9, 8.5, 7. And it was incredibly close at the end. So I thought Lando was dragging kind of a broken car across the finish line. But then people start speculating, I think he maybe he's running low on fuel. And you're like, oh, well, that's not good, because they do test how much fuel you've got. You have to have a certain amount of fuel in the car. If you don't have enough, you've got an unfair advantage because your car's lighter than the other cars. So I already had, I'm not saying I knew this was going to happen, but I had this foreboding feeling that when he had to start intentionally slowing down for a reason that wasn't mechanical, then they knew they had done something wrong, whether it was fuel, running it too low for the skid block or the floor. It just felt wrong. And I guess what they were doing in that moment was they were saying, slow down, like, please, because like we can't have you going fast, because every time you bounce off the bottom, you're going to take another 1/10 of a millimeter off the bottom. I don't know how they had that data that told them that they were in trouble, but they knew that someone knew they were in trouble. It was fascinating to watch. All to say, it was fascinating to watch in real time and have that dark cloud move over. I wonder if Lando knew.
You got that sense?
Do you think Lando knew?
I don't know if he knew the reason, but what I've read is that they were telling him to lift and coast in corners that would wear the right-hand side, so where he's turning left.
Yeah, there you go.
So they knew that there was some issue. I don't think it was communicated explicitly on the radio, but McLaren were trying to do this. And I haven't verified this, but I've read. But
Jace, hearing that information on the radio, he must have been beginning to think like, crap. Like, also, can I just say, like, one more thing I'll say is, don't do that. Like, do they? Well, this is my question. Do they test every car afterwards? You know how they do the spot checks where they pull a couple of cars in every race to check the fuel level. Because this is my question. It was a bit obvious that maybe they'd fumbled something by making him slow down so much. Maybe they would have been better off just like not highlighting it, because you can imagine you're a steward watching a car slow down. You've probably got access to the radio. Like, the first thing you're going to do when that car stops is go and check it. So did they Did they? They should have just. They should have just kept going. Speaking of should have just kept going, who else should have just kept going, Jace, this weekend? Who else should have just kept going? Sir Lewis Hamilton should have just kept going.
Should have kept going in qualifying. Is that what you're getting to? Should have just kept his foot planted and not given up.
Given up. And so should Lando, I think. Anyway, should we talk a little bit about that?
I've got two more things on the disqualification, and then we'll keep on going. So one is, apparently they tested the top 10. So that's why it took so long. And they also heard arguments. So afterwards, that's why it took literally hours for it to be resolved. The other thing about the disqualification is, if you remember earlier in the year, in the second round in China, Ferrari had a double disqualification due to technical reasons. One of them was plank wear, one of them was weight. Here's a great stat for you. That was Ferrari's first ever double disqualification for technical reasons. And then this weekend in Las Vegas was McLaren's first ever double disqualification for technical reasons. So we've had the two, probably the oldest, most storied, successful teams on the grid, both have their first ever double disqualification in the same season. Insane. And I think it's the first season where we've had two teams have a double disqualification in the same season since 2002 or 2003. So this year just keeps on giving. It is the year that delivers in doubles.
It delivers. That makes sense to me, because I think at this point in the regulation window, we're at the end of the regulation window, we're going to get a brand new car next year. They kind of know what their car does, so it doesn't surprise me that both cars will run at that height. I know different sides of the garage. For those who don't know, the driver does work with their own side of the garage. They have their own set of engineers and technicians. So there is a world in which Piastri's car was fine and Lando's wasn't. But at this stage, at the end of a season, when they really know how the car works, at the end of a regulation period, those cars are going to be in an operating window where it's going to get quite generic and similar. So it doesn't surprise me that you have teams getting the penalty for the same thing. Anyway, let's put the plank down, put the skid block, I don't know, drill it, screw it back onto the bottom of the car, a bit thicker this time, and move on. Quali was more exciting than the race. How do you feel about that?
Quali was hair-raising. It was, I couldn't turn my eyes away. It was insane. And two things on this. One, we've never seen Vegas in the rain before. So we've only had Vegas, 2 previous seasons, but it's been dry every time we've been there. And didn't it just shine? It looked absolutely gorgeous with all the spray, the mist, all the reflections, all the lights. Wow. Let's put sprinklers by the track next time. I think get the Bellagio fountain to just aim their jets, towards the track instead of away or up into the sky. That was stunning. But the flip side to that is, wow, that was scary. That was probably the scariest qualifying I've seen in a long time, because the visibility was so poor. They're in these tunnels essentially, and all the rooster tails of water spraying up behind the cars. It's got nowhere to go. So they're just driving into a white mist, and the ability to do that, manage your tires, manage your turn in braking points, and then get on the throttle, manages the car, the rear of the car is stepping out and you're almost going into the wall. Oh my word, that chicane right at the end of the lap. The number of times drivers nearly planted themselves right into the wall where Colapinto did last year, that was insane. So the bravery of these drivers to be able to get out there and do that was next level. It was brilliant. And yet it did open up some areas for a fumble. Kimi Antonelli being one good example, and Lewis Hamilton, both of whom just didn't do quali right. They had a little brain fart or something happened, and they just could not get it done. Now, with Hamilton, we talked about this yesterday when we were watching the race, and it's like bad communication between team and driver, yeah. They had some uncertainties about whether or not Lewis even made it across the line in order to start his final lap in Q1. But, as you said, and I totally agree, he should have just gone on as though it was all good, and then later on be told, no, you didn't make it, you got to back off. But he backed off in the first sector and then essentially threw away an opportunity to go through to Q2. It was very unlike Lewis Hamilton.
It was unlike Lewis. Just to kind of put some context around this, we have Lewis hasn't done well in Q1, needs to get a lap in, which normally is fine, and normally teams know how long it's going to take to get around the track, and get to the start line. The clock's ticking down. You need to get across that line to start your final lap. And I have no doubt in my mind that Lewis would have comfortably made it into Q2, probably Q3, comfortably into Q3, that the Ferrari was quick here. But when you add rain, when you add a yellow flag, when no one quite knows exactly how long it takes to get around a track in those conditions, he found himself coming up to the start-finish line with seconds to spare. And as Lewis crosses the line, in his, you've talked about rooster tails, mist, there's just blaring Vegas lights. He sees the light go red, indicating that quali's over. However, when they did the video replay, as he crossed the line, it was still green and then very quickly went wet. So like it might have, I don't know the exact data, but it might have been 2 or 3 seconds, maybe even less. But he was across the line in time to start his final lap. And he didn't. He just what happened is he made a decision on his own. And that is a problem, because you can blame Ferrari for not saying, go, 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 go. Or, or telling him like, we think you can do this. You've got it. Yeah. You can blame Ferrari for not being better on the radio. They are a diabolical team in terms of strategy and communication. But so you can blame them. But also, I think, as you said yesterday, Jason, you can just go for it and then wait for the radio second 5 seconds later to say, sorry, Lewis, we've missed that. But he didn't. He made a decision out of relationship with the team. And that was a fumble on his part. And, look, I'm not saying Ferrari are great at this stuff. They always get the stuff wrong. But he should have just... I don't know. My only thought was, do you get a penalty do you get like a grid penalty for the race if you...
No.
If you try and start off...
No.
I don't know. I don't know. You can't just do one, can you? You can't just... Was he... Are they trained to like not go if they think they've not made it for fear of some repercussions? You're saying no. I'll take your word for it. But yeah, just so surprising from Lewis, that decision, because look, he had a comeback race.
Judging by his season and the sort of luck levels that he and his teammate have had, he would have got a penalty if he'd gone to set a lap and he'd just made the line. He would have got a penalty, guaranteed. That's just the kind of year that Lewis has had. But if they go out of track limits, they continue and complete the lap, and then the lap time just gets deleted. So it's like a normal racing car driver thing to do, to just go for it and see if you can get away with it. And he chose not to do that. It does make me think, has he lost his mojo? Is this the sort of, is it the age factor? Is it the getting told off by your boss factor? Is it the tough season wearing him down more than a plank at the end of a Vegas Grand Prix factor? What is it about Lewis that's stopping him from pushing harder?
This is a man that's gone to hell. This is a man who had to drive an F1 car without side pods for 1.5 seasons. Watching Matt. So in 2021, he gets illegally robbed of being, certified the greatest of all time with 8 world championships. He gets illegally robbed through some kind of manipulation, I'm convinced, or just a stupid move. Then he has to endure a car that has no side pods and is basically undrivable and porpoising and rattling his brain for 1.5 years. And then he has to deal with Toto saying to him, yeah, you can stay, but we'll just give you a 1 year contract. In other words, you're on the way out. We love you, mate. You've made Mercedes what it is, but I can't offer you more than... So
you missed the worst part of it, Gav. You missed the worst part of it.
No, wait. And then his dog dies. And then in Canada, he hits some small, he's a vegan and he hits some small animal. Like, the guy's been through it.
Oh, the worst part, Gav, he had to endure those seasons being teammates to the head boy, to being next to George.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
George had to deal with George.
That was the worst part of it, I reckon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Blimey. Yeah.
So the guy can be forgiven. The guy can be forgiven for... I mean, Lewis has been sultry on the post race interviews. Like, he just looks like, oh, he just doesn't want to be there. But also there's almost a bit of malice that comes out of Lewis these days when someone asks, when someone asks you a question, or you ask someone a question, they're gonna go, huh, duh, well, obviously, like, whatever, like, I don't even really care.
He's like a teenager.
That's kind of been hit. He's really teen. He's kind of regressed into teenager.
And the funny thing about that is, you see, it's often Lawrence Barretto who's asking him the questions. And Lawrence is a very knowledgeable presenter. He's part of the F1 team. And he's usually quite soft in the way he asks the questions. He's like, so, Lewis, you're out in Q1. So it wasn't that bad, and I'm sure you can find some positives from this, right, Lewis? And Lewis is just there like, get me out of here. Oh, man. And he did, as you say, he made the most of it. It was a recovery drive. He got the 1 point. He got the 1 point thanks to the disqualification. So, we can be grateful for that.
Did he not get 2 points? He finished
You're
P8.
You're right. Okay, I've got old information. He finished
2 points.
2 points in P8. No, that means he got 3 points, 4 points. Who cares? He got more than one, but he benefited from the disqualification. But also, he tried the contra strategy, and for once it actually worked. Usually when we see Lewis starting from the back, he's on the opposite tyre to what the rest of the grid is doing, and oftentimes it just does not work. He started on the hard tyre, and usually that just means you get swallowed up by those around you, and you get stuck in dirty air, and you end up with a really sad Lewis at the end. In this case, he went long on the hards, switched to the mediums, managed to get a few undercuts, and then finished in P10, which moved to P8. We still ended up with a sad Lewis at the end, but he tried something and it actually worked. I mean, there's some positives that can be found from the performance this weekend.
Absolutely.
And so, it's not all doom and gloom. But actually, one thing I noticed, it's yet another race where Hamilton and Hülkenberg have been fighting for position. How many times have we seen that this year? And how likely would that have come up on your bingo card at the start of the season, expecting a works Ferrari driver, 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, to be going toe-to-toe with the perennial no-podium, long-term journeyman Ferrari customer team driver Nico Hülkenberg? That just would not have come up on my bingo card at the start of the season.
Yeah, that is nuts. All I can say for Lewis is that if they give him a good car, then all of this has been probably incredibly formative. If they give him a good car, then he can, because I think when you've won, you're 7 times world champion, you're used to being in an incredibly quick car, you're used to winning. I imagine you get very comfortable with good machinery and basically being a winner. You just get comfortable with it. So 3 years of not being a winner, of having a terrible time, it will either kill someone and make them retire, or I don't know. It will give them this kind of dogfight, like you're fighting with Hülkenberg. These are not things that are unuseful if he is given a good car next year.
If, that's a big if.
Hoping and big if, huge if, and probably won't because Ferrari. But if he gets a good car, I can imagine the trauma will be what do they say, refined into gold in Lewis. Because I do still think, I know I often say to you like, oh, I think you should just retire, but like I do still believe, especially with Fernando Alonso out there in a pretty crappy, mid-range car, still driving like an absolute world champion. I think, I don't know, like people tell you, oh, your reaction speed is the biggest thing that goes against you when you get to 40, 42, like don't expect to be as quick as the 25-year-olds. It's just nature. It's just biology. It's just the way it is. But I don't know if I don't know. I'm sure that's an element of it, but I don't know. More old men in F1 racing, please. I say old men. I'm older than both of those drivers, which is humbling. Yeah.
Well, it really brings us back to the early days of the sport when we'd have 50-plus-year-olds driving around and winning Grand Prix back in the 50s. So that's great. But let's go to the other end of the spectrum now, because a man who was driving with maturity beyond his years managed to finish ultimately in third place. And this is our boy, Kimi Antonelli. I mean, if you think
Unbelievable.
If you think Lewis's comeback was impressive, coming from P20 or starting P19 and ending up 10, Kimi Antonelli came from 17th on the grid to finish third. His podium, he didn't get to stand on the podium, but he ultimately got it with the disqualification. What a drive. What a gun. This kid is the real deal. He was the only driver to drive on the soft tyre. And then he did a 49-lap stint on the hard tyre.
Unbelievable.
It was unfathomable, just the caliber of driving that he pulled off. I think he'd only done something like 9 laps on the hard tyre before the race, because he'd mostly focused on medium and soft running in FP1 and FP2. FP3 had been wet. Qualifying was wet. So the hard tyre was kind of an unknown for Antonelli going in. Maybe a low risk, but, still a big unknown. And then he is able to hold off Piastri and Leclerc behind him on tyres that were essentially half as old as Kimi's. And he was also going faster. It was just a phenomenal achievement to be able to absorb that kind of failure, to be able to sort of internalize that, to be able to deal with it, and then come good at the end. I'm just so impressed week after week, middle of the season slump notwithstanding. Kimi Antonelli, he's on the up and up. Kudos to him. What did you think of his race?
Just everything you said, I echo. I think we know he's quick, but he struggled with racecraft, which is absolutely for the first half of the season, which is absolutely understandable for a rookie. He's a rookie who's gone into one of the top teams in F1. Rookies don't go into top teams. They go to Racing Bulls. They go to Stake. They go to Sauber. They go, whatever. They go to Williams. Like, rookies do not go to Mercedes. In fact, I think we said when we were chatting yesterday, this is the first rookie that Mercedes have taken either ever or in a very, 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 very long time. 50 years. They took a huge risk on Kimi. And I wouldn't be surprised if about halfway through the year, they were beginning to wonder, not whether he was everything they thought he'd be, but if he was everything they thought he'd be just yet. And oh my gosh, has this kid proven that, or it certainly feels like he's very close to proving, yes, he was worth the risk, he was worth the investment. He's always been quick, but now he's learning to, he's developing racecraft, and he's learning to, like you say, Jace. Well, let's think of the two things that he did that were really, really impressive. One, start from P17, so have the fight in him to be like, screw this, I'm moving up, and nothing's going to stop me. Like,
I belong
I'm
at
going,
the front.
and I belong at the front. So one, he has the strength of mind to not give up and not to sulk like some other drivers on the grid that we know when they start at the back. Two, he lived under pressure on crapper tyres, like you say, for a long time. He soaked up that pressure of Piastri in probably the quickest car, the quickest car of this season behind him, and Leclerc, like a seasoned and quick driver. He soaked that up with worn out tyres. They are the foreshadowing signs. They are the foreshadowing signs of a future champion.
And he had a 5-second penalty.
Yeah.
He had a penalty that he had to get far enough down the road ahead of Leclerc in order for that penalty to not put him behind Leclerc. So not only was he able to hold off Piastri and Leclerc behind him, he was able to go fast enough to be able to put 5 seconds distance between him and Leclerc in the last 5 or 6 laps of the race. And this is on 46, 47, 48, 49 lap old hard tyres. It was something else. It was absolutely stunning. So I was just blown away. I was cheering him on. You know, he's just come good, and that risk reward aspect of racing, I'm proud that Mercedes would go there. That it's the first top team to put a rookie in for a long time, and yeah, he's come good. Speaking of rookies, but not so good, I think Gabby Bortoletto would say maybe this was the race to forget, even more so than his home Grand Prix in Brazil last round. I don't know, coming up the inside on a dusty, dirty street track on hard tyres, maybe not the best decision. What do you think? Lap 1, turn 1, bit of a 10-pin bowling game, really.
It was a really hard crash to get your head around with the camera angles, and it was one of those ones where a number of cars got got a dent and a bump, and yeah, I don't know. I think you know more about it than me, just by virtue of that he came up the inside. I wasn't focused on him at that moment. I was focused on Lando getting overtaken by Max Verstappen and George Russell. So I was kind of wetting my pants a few meters up the track. But yeah, I don't know. Look, honestly, the race was up the front. There were a few other good drives, I think. A lot of these results have been dictated by Lando and Piastri getting there, being disqualified.
Yes, but
Carlos Sainz.
I was just about to say Carlos Sainz.
Up at 5th.
Yeah.
And
that was on merit.
Isaac. Yeah.
Yeah. So they benefited from the disqualifications, sure. But Sainz, compare Sainz to Albon this weekend. Albon crashes. He crashes in the race and in qualifying. He winds up not even finishing the race. And there's Sainz, by contrast, putting it on third on the grid and then managing to hold on and finish 5th. It was a fantastic drive and in really challenging machinery. This is the thing. It's the overperforming your car aspect that really impresses here. And Hadjar was the same, qualified 8th, finished 6th. This is brilliant. And Lawson, I think, would have finished higher because he was faster than Hadjar this weekend, except for the lap 1 shenanigans. He got caught up in that. He got punted, spun around, and then he was doing the punting. Gasly got caught and spun around as well. That was a shame for Gasly because Alpine this year have been the worst team. They've got 20 points in the Constructors' Championship. One of their drivers hasn't scored a single point. Pierre Gasly, poor thing, he's tootling around with 22 points, so he's right at the back. But Vegas, baby, Vegas is where he comes alive. The last 2 years, he's qualified 4th and then 3rd. I was thinking, here it comes. He's going to get his 2nd qualifying position. And then he performs well in the race as well. But it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be because someone else rolled the dice and hit him from the rear and spun him around. And then where's his race? He's basically, almost getting lapped right at the back. That really sucked. So it was disappointing to me that lap 1, turn 1, 2 years in a row has been a kind of a skittle machine, and whoever comes out is kind of the lucky ones. And so some of the performers that could have done well didn't have the chance. They got robbed essentially of that opportunity. And I'd say, yeah, Lawson robbed himself and Gasly got robbed. And then there's Tsunoda. I find it interesting that Tsunoda's kind of not even in the conversation anymore. It's like we all just sort of don't even bother talking about Tsunoda. We know that he's on his way out. Gee whiz. Qualifying 18th and then starting from the pit lane. He did okay in the race. He got his way up to 12th, but
yeah.
It's like, why even bother?
It's
don't
just,
turn up.
It feels like with Yuki, it's either like a complete failure or just something so vanilla and in the middle. Like, no one wants to be P12. Like, you'd probably rather be P18th, and then you could moan about something wrong with the car. But you don't want to be P12 when your teammate is consistently like standing on the podium.
He's
Yeah,
pulling
like
off
I fell
the
in love.
comeback of the century, it seems. And then there's Yuki over there. It's like,
I
ugh,
know,
jeez.
so tough. So I still think probably anyone who's in that second Red Bull car is still the victim of a car that is still entirely designed for only one man to drive well, which they'll have to address this next year, or maybe they won't. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll still design the car that Max wants, like fundamentally design a car that Max wants, and the second driver will fundamentally struggle for another year. It might. I mean, imagine if you were Red Bull, and I don't think this is really a conversation. I think maybe it probably was a few years ago, but um, is the conversation, can we make this car a little bit less on the nose, a little bit less twitchy, a little bit less front endy, because our second driver can't drive it? And do you think someone just says, give Max what he wants? Like, this is how Max drives. He will always be our number one driver while he's with us. Like, just give him the car that he wants. And number two, obviously we'd love them to score some points as well, but like making Max happy and keeping Max at Red Bull is our priority. So we will not give him the car that he wants.
100%.
Do you think there's
100%? And
Yeah.
you know what? The results
Yeah.
speak for themselves. I saw a stat which was if you put Max Verstappen racing up alongside the other constructors, he would be ahead of Ferrari. Like, he is Red Bull. And when you have a talented driver like that, like the same thing happened in the noughties with Schumacher. The second driver's just there to look pretty and make up the numbers. Why would you do anything to make that driver drive any slower?
lower? Yeah.
Why would you
Yeah,
do
you
any?
wouldn't.
That would be the stupidest decision you could make. So as much as you like Laurent, and I like him too, and isn't he chic looking with his little goatee and his glasses, looking up at his boy on the podium? As much as that team culture seems to be changing and improving, why would they do anything that would compromise the performance of this dude? And as to next year, I think the bigger challenge for them is going to be working with a new engine supplier and actually making sure that it doesn't go pop halfway through the race, and that it's performant, and that it works with all the whiz-bang new electrical gizmos that they're going to have to deal with. I don't think they're going to be worried about P1 qualifying or race finishes. I think they're going to be worried about making sure that their package is sort of performant. I think they're going to be more of a midfield team next year. That's my vibe on that. And so then it's more like, how do we keep Max not leaving and sort of bought into the project more longer term, despite some of the challenges that they're inevitably going to have to overcome next year.
Yeah, agreed.
What did you think of Vegas? What did you think of Vegas? Vegas was...
do you know what? That's what I was going to say before you interrupted me and started rambling
Sorry,
on.
bro.
I was going to say, I'm actually joking. That wasn't real. I love listening to you ramble on. I just was kind of a bit spellbound by Vegas this year. Like, I think, Jace, you've talked about just the way F1 has upped its visual game, with some of its kind of cinematography and some of the shots and some of the drones and some of the, kind of the tracking helicopter shots. They've really made some of these circuits come alive, and I resentfully was kind of spellbound by the way Vegas looked. I mean, so cinematic. I can't believe I'm going to gush, no pun intended, about a fountain, but some of the overhead shots they were getting in the fountain, I'm just like, this place is insane. I know it's the city of sin and people just go there and like lose money on slot machines, but I kind of want to be there. And I don't always feel that way. Notable mention, China. When I see a F1 track, I don't always like really want to be there. Oh, I'd like to go to Spa. I'd like to go, it made me really want to be there. I thought it was beautiful visually. So props to the F1 team for like making F1 cinematic for us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the circuit also did something different. I haven't quite put my finger on it, but I looked back at some of the onboard footage from 23, 24 in the sort of week leading up to this race. I was just kind of soaking in Vegas, whilst Vegas was soaking in flooding throughout the week leading up to the race. And there is a distinct difference this year, if you look at the onboards of the drivers compared to last year to this year, you can see a lot more of the lights. And I reckon they did something with the catch fencing or the sort of safety features without compromising the safety of the race. They made it easier to see Vegas whilst also watching the race. And I think from a package perspective, from a sort of entertainment package perspective, it worked. It worked so well. And they might have changed their camera angles, and they had more shots of that beautiful orb thing, whatever it is, with its various animations. The city came alive. It probably also helped that aside from some shenanigans in FP2, they didn't have a water valve cover come up and destroy one of their race cars, and that end up, if you remember 2023, they had FP2 at 3 a.m. in the morning and no one was there watching because all the fans had been kicked out. So they had empty grandstands the first year that they were running there. That was a catastrophe, but they've come good. And even though we did have some pretty challenging conditions, all the rain that happened in the lead up and then the rain that downpoured during Saturday, they still managed to pull off a pretty amazing Grand Prix weekend, and it led to some incredible storylines. And I, like you, now kind of want to go to Vegas next year. I don't know. Maybe it could be the new one that we go to. It's that glitz. It's that razzle dazzle. It's the sparkle that you get in the glint of the diamond in the desert. And it's pretty compelling. But we've got another desert to come to in the next 2 weekends. We're going first to Qatar, and then after that to the season finale in Abu Dhabi. And speaking of Abu Dhabi and this season wrapping up, guess who has their final FP1 session where they'll miss because of the rookie testing program? You know how they have rookie drivers in FP1? Do you know who's going to miss their final FP1 session this year in Abu Dhabi?
Oscar Piastri. I don't know why they decided that was the right way to play it out. Because they thought he would have already won it by now, Jace. This calendar was probably done in like halfway through the season. They're like, oh, Oscar will have wrapped this up totally by now. That's fine. Might as well let someone else. They probably said might as well let the rookie actually race if Oscar win. If Oscar's already run it. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
That worked so well for Jack Doohan last year, didn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm excited for Qatar. It's a track that I think its first appearance on the calendar was 2021, and as far as I know, it's on the calendar for about 10 more years. So they've kind of locked it in for the next 10 or so years. It was originally a motorcycle. It was designed for motorcycling. Did you know that? Did you read that as well? I was doing a bit of research on Qatar, but I think that's quite interesting. And there will be lots of chances for overtaking because you've got that kilometre-long kind of straight. And so there'll be lots of turn one opportunities. I can't say I've got any really. I can't. Was it Ollie Behrman in the Ferrari at Qatar? Was that
in Saudi
when
Arabia.
he got his? That was in Saudi Arabia.
The Jeddah.
See, look, I'm just mixing
circuit.
up
Man.
Jeddah. It was
scary.
Yes, it was Jeddah. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's I suppose what's good for McLaren is that if Vegas was a track that historically and technically doesn't suit their car, on paper the final two tracks in the year do suit their car, so at least they won't be needing to lower the car right down to the ground sneakily to try and compete. Hopefully they should just be able to run their car. Lando and Lando can Lando or Piastri can get the drivers' championship. Likely Lando. Piastri can hold on to P2, but we will see. And I'm nervous and excited. I think selfishly, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I was devastated by the disqualification, but zooming out as a F1 fan, you should be nothing but excited that it's coming down to the wire in this way.
Yeah, and stay glued to your screen because it really will come down to maybe even the last lap of the last round in Abu Dhabi. It is a
Again.
showdown in the desert again, under lights again. We're living in the best timeline, my friend. This is what we dreamed of, and I remember lamenting with you at times throughout the season. We're thinking, oh no, Lando or Piastri, they've just sort of rollicked off, and we won't catch them again. The rest of the season's going to be boring. No, not on your life. And if either one of them has a DNF or, God forbid, another DSQ this weekend, it is going to be gloves off. And, well, I don't think it's game over, but it's going to be gloves off in the desert. Bring it on.
Okay, McLaren, no more engine failures. Remember that Lando has had an engine failure. The only driver maybe this year who's had like their engine just basically blow up on them. So hopefully that's out of the way for him. But McLaren, don't run your cars too low. Put enough fuel in them, please. There's no point fumbling it here.
Don't crash into each other.
And Max, don't crash into people because you're a psychopath. Just enjoy the fact that you've got the opportunity.
You can't help it, can
you? You've got the opportunity and the skill, Max, to win this if the chips fall your way. Is how I'd leave it. Mate, see you in Qatar. Can't wait. And yeah, stressful few weeks for me coming up. But I think for you, you're quite chilled, aren't you?
Loving it. I don't care who wins at this stage. It is just... I'm living it. I'm breathing it. I'm soaking it all in. Bring it on. You know, if we do have the 35th world champion, I'm going to be stoked whichever way it goes, because the last, I think, 8 championships have been won by 2 drivers, and the last 16 championships have been won by 4 drivers. So I think it is time for some fresh blood. So bring that on. Fresh rubber all the way.
If you want fresh blood, you've got to get some fresh rubber on. And with that, we will say good night and see you next week.